What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here, and today I am happy to be joined by Josh Park, the writer, director, and editor of the psychological horror thriller film Mary Kwon Mary Kwon, making its world premiere at the Asian American International Film Festival. The film follows Mary Kwon, an English professor who retreats to an isolated house connected to her family's past, only to find herself confronting increasingly strange and unsettling events that really blur the line between memory healing and horror. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So, you've written and directed a few shorts before, but what was it about this story that made you realize this needs to be my first feature film?
Yeah, that's a great question. This film came about in a really interesting way, which is my producer, Madison, who's also in the film as the character Granger. I was sort of just like pontificating about like how much I wanted to do a sort of low budget thriller and horror type project. I was like, that would be so cool to just like crank out. And I feel like that's the kind of genre that um I'm a big fan of the original like Evil Dead movies and things like that. And obviously, this film is very different, but it was sort of like that contained thriller aspect that I really wanted to play with. And then they came to me with like, "Hey, I think I know some people who might want to put some resources down for it." And I was like, "Oh, awesome." I didn't have a script at that point. So I had to sort of like reverse engineer but I did have like a budget that I knew I needed to hit, and I knew that it's like the best way to make this film was to make it very contained with very few like cast members and like really try to like you know build a film around its resources. That's kind of how I wrote it, and I think the first thing that came to me was this sort of idea of like um, actually, I won't spoil this just in case people are people haven't seen the film, but there are sort of like approaching different times in the film in the same location that I really wanted to play around with. And I think that was the sort of thing that like caught my attention with the concept, and then I sort of built it out from there.
And so it's not really a spoiler, but we can say that because we're not going to spoil the film, but it does unfold in almost one single location,
Yeah.
yet it never feels visually repetitive. So I'm
Mhm.
curious to know how you worked with your cinematographer, Sarah Simka Jaffe, about
Yeah.
really continually finding ways to explore the space and keep evolving it emotionally as the story goes.
I love that question. I Sarah Jaffe's a genius. I've worked with her on the past couple of shorts I did. And I think like actually the last film we did, which was about the Korean War, and it's a period piece. But it all takes place in a black box theater. And I actually think that like helped my at least my understanding of like how to make a space feel much more intense and like varied than it actually is. And so I think we took a lot of that philosophy to this film. And I think what was interesting is like we play with different times of day are really important. And I think for especially for this project, and I think we really exploited that as much as possible in terms of like, oh, different lighting setups, um, different times of day don't just mean like different times of day, it means different emotional states for the characters. And I think we really did that. Also, like shout out to our gaffer, Shane Lewis, who really put the work into he's a genius as well, and he really like built out the really varied lighting setups we were able to like just capture different emotional spaces. So I think really just like the camera and lighting team were awesome in like developing different looks. And build because I can imagine a reality where this same script I try to pull off with like a team not as badass as this, and I can imagine it like being a little more boring and staid visually.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in addition to writing and directing, you also wore the editor's hat. So, did wearing all three of these hats make your process easier because you could keep your vision consistent, or was it more challenging because you sometimes maybe had to step back a little bit?
Yeah, that's great. It was hard for sure. Since I work so much in the low budget, I've only worked in the micro budget, like indie, field. I think just by necessity, I've had to take on a lot of the roles. Um, I've edited, I think, everything I've directed so far. What really helped was that I actually got my buddy from film school, Drew Roderick. Shout out to Drew, who was my co-editor and my AE on this. And he really like helped me. It was really helpful. I don't know how I would have done it without another set of eyes in post. And sometimes I would just be like, we shot all this. I don't know how to pull this together. And then he would sort of like help me by building out a really rough like schema of the scene. And then I would see it and I was like, okay, now I have a roadmap. And that was really, really helpful. I actually think like I would love to try and work with an editor that's not me for future projects and just see what that's like. I don't really have a reference point for what that's like. So I'm curious to know what that'll be.
And as you were having that second pair of eyes and watching this roadmap, I mean, look, let's be honest, so much of this film really relied on Kat Kim because she carries this whole film with Mary's quiet observations, the internal journey. What were your conversations like with Kat as you worked together to shape this performance?
Yeah, I have to really give all my flowers to Kat because she was the lead of my last short and she was excellent. Um, and so working with her again on this was such a blessing. Um, and I'll be honest, like as much as I want to give credit to myself as a filmmaker, like you said, she really carried the film, and she would ask all of these questions, where questions about the journey, like the character's journey, questions about the character's headspace, where I was like, I got to come up with answers for these because you're really
That's your
bringing up
job.
great points. Yeah, exactly. Um, and so. And so that was sort of like a really eye-opening moment of like, wow, yeah, film is truly such a collaborative medium. And Kat was, I mean, like, I like, I think it'd be great. I think like honestly, like every sort of lead actor I've worked with has been in a way like a kind of co-director, if that makes sense. Like there's sort of like a dialogue going on there where yeah, to me, my relationship with the lead actor is very close and like they always bring something new to the table that I really appreciate. And like that goes double for Kat, who really brought a lot of her own creative spirit and her own interpretation to the project, which was awesome.
And now we're going to try to skirt this one because I don't want to spoil anything here, but I have to
Sure.
ask.
Sure.
The film really walks that line between psychological drama and horror. So,
Mhm.
from the writing perspective, how did you try to approach maintaining that uncertainty without tipping your hand too early?
It wasn't without its hiccups in the writing because I mean the way I write, I have a lot of foibles where I'll put out a draft and I'm like, awesome. This is great. And then I'll sort of like, pass it around to people and then they'll start pointing things out. It's a lot of at first it's a lot of like logical inconsistencies or like inaccuracies or what have you. And then from there I sort of start whittling down like there's a lot of like downstream problems. And so I think it was with the help of like a lot of my like pre-production team to help sort of like starting from kind of it sort of starts from logistics too for this project where it was a little bit like oh in terms of scheduling like I always in pre I even in the writing stage I think I'm like I always try to make it easier and sort of like cut out things that are either not super creatively fulfilling or all that interesting. And through that process, I think that's when I start to whittle down into actual tonal things. And um, yeah, my big models for this movie were um, actually like The Exorcist was huge for
Mm-hmm.
me. Rewatching that and
Love that film.
Poltergeist, yeah, it's so great. Poltergeist a little bit to me too, where it's like and Exorcist, I mean, we remember, all those scenes of, um, I forget the actor and the character's name, but the girl in the bedroom. We remember those grotesque, horrifying scenes, which are amazing. But then it's like William Friedkin's treatment of the pastor or the lapsed priest,
Yeah.
where it's like that's truly like such a ethical and yeah, personal like dilemma. And that was a big model for me of like, oh yeah, you can really anchor the horror and thriller elements onto a very personal and like intimate journey. Um, Not to say this movie is anywhere in the region of a film as great as The Exorcist. Maybe one day, but that was a big model for me in terms of like balancing those elements for sure.
As you reflect back on making your debut feature, Mary Kwon Mary Kwon, what is one best practice that you learned that you look forward to carrying with you into your next project? And on the other side of it, what was one learning curve that you might change how you'll approach something next time?
Yeah, those are awesome questions. I think like um I think I talked a little bit with Sarah, my cinematographer, on about this is like one thing that I think I really truly did correctly on this project was um like in its production and its philosophy, it was as small as it needed to be and as big as it could be. So like with the resources we had, with the location we had, it's like we really squeezed the juice out of every single space in that house, every single like surrounding potential location around it. And like we really like took advantage of like everything that I had on the plate, which I think I will definitely try to carry to like future projects because I think that's so important. Because I see filmmakers where they really, whether it's their first feature or not, or whether it's even just like a short or whatever, where they fumble because they try to think so expansively and it doesn't work out. Um, Learning curve, I think to me what I learned directing this feature, in which I didn't need to deal with in the shorts, is like keeping in pace with the emotional and mental state of the characters because it's like a long story. And I mean, this film was shot very quickly. It was shot over the course of 2 weeks. But even over that time, when I'm used to shoots that are more like 2 or 3 days, it's kind of like, oh, I actually need to like sort of tack down like what characters are thinking, what happened um, in the scene previously, what happened in the scene after. And I had an excellent script supervisor, our script supervisor Che, who was like amazing, but it was still sort of like I have to keep this in mind for myself of like how these characters are feeling. And the moments I felt worst on set was when I was like, oh, I'm not in tune with like the scene we're actually approaching,
Right.
and I need to like sort of like embody that. Yeah.
And one last question before I have to let you go. When audiences leave Mary Kwan, what is one feeling or idea you hope stays with them after the credits roll?
Mm, mm. I hope people are able to have a curiosity about questioning kind of questioning the narratives that are dominant, that are sort of given to them, and are more curious about those things. Um, yeah, I think that would be great to like impart on audiences with this film.
Nice. Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Congratulations on the world premiere of Mary Kwon Mary Kwon. Everyone, if you are attending the Asian American International Film Festival, make sure you check out this film. We will include information in the notes below on how you can get tickets for the screening, as well as social media information on the filmmaker, Josh, on the team, on the film. If you enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also check out my website, cinephilemike.com, for more filmmaker interviews like this, spoiler-free reviews, and other great cinematic content. Until next time, I am here to remind you to take a break and watch something new. Josh, have a great day.
Thank you so much.